Lance Silverwolf here with Little Empire. When you're putting together woodcut pieces from Little Empire, here's some tools you might be needing. Wood glue is going to come in handy. You can also use super glue for putting these together, but super glue is going to lead to a lot of sticky, messy fingers. I do recommend the wood glue. Acrylic art paints, a paintbrush, some paint trays, a razor blade. Always be careful with knives and blades. A little bit of sandpaper, pencil, a couple of craft supplies like that always come in handy. And for putting together some of these buildings, towers, and trays, you might use a small rubber mallet to gently knock some of these pieces together. When applying glue, you want to apply a couple beads of glue and then use your finger to dab at it and spread it along the piece. That way you're not getting glue blobbing out of the sides or anything. Most of the time though, you're just going to need your trusty wood glue to put most of these together, and that's going to work best for you. We are putting together the sword booth now. Open the box, remove some tissue paper probably, a little thank you card. Take out all the pieces of your sword booth and set them down on the table so we can go over them. Here are the sides of the wall. These are the last sort of pieces you're going to be adding. These are some bracers for right under the overhanging roof. These are some top of the roof pieces. And here are your main walls right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 main walls. We have 2 roof pieces and a base plate. Here's the sign to hang out outside the front of your sword booth shop. Now this booth could be any sort of booth you want. I just call it a sword booth because all these swords and weapons inside. You can always turn this piece around when you install it and draw on there any sort of booth you want. So it can turn into anything you'd like to have that day as you're building your Renaissance or fantasy village. The base plate, these parts here are where the bracers are going to be going in, and this is the bottom of the main booth here. This is the back door of the building where this will be setting up later on. We will get to that. The sword booth we're going to assemble in a couple different pieces here. When you're putting the glue on, I recommend putting the whole thing together without any glue so you see where these pieces line up along the edges, and that way you know where to apply this glue. Like right inside these edges here, apply a little bead of glue, dab it with your finger, and if there's any excess glue around, you can always scrape it off with a small knife or the toothpick. The nice thing about the wood glue is that you can roll it off and beat it up, unlike the super glue that's going to stick and stay stuck, even sometimes sticking your finger there. If you're in a hurry, use the super glue, but if you have a little bit of time, which I recommend, take your time and use that wood glue. Here we go. The bottom has these pegs, which will be going right here, but first we're going to assemble this a little bit in the air, making sure you check for which side is the bottom, which side is the top. The top sides or the outsides have a little bit of a nice burn. The bottoms have a little bit of a honeycomb pattern, or like a little bit of a less of a nice burn on them. I don't really know what other way to say that. We're putting these together. We're going to put 2 sides onto the back, just like this. It's going to take a little bit of finagling, but you can get it done. Hold them in one hand. You might need somebody else to help you with this one. It is a little bit of a bigger booth. Unlike some of the other booths, the next thing we're going to do here is attach one of these roof sides. We're going to line these 2 holes in the back with these 2 tabs here and kind of work its way up. That's going to hold the whole thing in shape a little bit. Kind of get one in, get the next. It does take a little bit of wiggling and a little bit of finagling. Let's see how we can do this, folks. Let's see how we can do this. How about this? How about we put a top piece in right over here? Sometimes the piece is unaligned just a little bit, so don't press it too hard. Make sure you're lining up those pieces and wiggling them into place. This next top piece right here, and then this bottom piece should be going right in just like that. There we go. That top piece, you can kind of then hold all that together and that's not going to fall in on you. Nice way to have that there. Next, we're going to put this other top piece on. Again, these top pieces are going in before some of these other walls to hold it together some. Sometimes you want to line up all 4 pieces, all 4 tabs, instead of putting in one side. And you should get a reassuring click once everything starts wiggling into place. There we go. Looking nice. Everything's there. This is your main sword wall here. This is the bottom of the floor of this part here. These holes are going to be towards the front. This part's going to slide right in underneath just like this. Again, it takes a little wiggling. Don't be afraid to apply a little bit of pressure. If at any time you need to use a hammer to lightly tap it into place, go ahead. Not hard hits, just little taps. Again, everything takes a little bit of wiggle, but it's all made to fit together very snug. This is your main sword wall, the main wall of the shop. You have those two little tabs that are gonna work out right there. Slide that into place. You'll be gluing this as you go along. And then the last piece here, these two little tabs are facing down. They're gonna go into those two little slots there. You can kind of place it up top, slide it into place, and then all that can be held or glued. Very nice and snug. That's a nice snug together piece. Now, before you put these tabs into these slots on the base, you're gonna want to install these bracers right here, because those are gonna come down and slide right into these front holes here. You are gonna take these bracers on the side. There's a little hole in the back of the wall and a little hole up here. Place it in the back of the wall first, and then kind of wiggle it straight to the top. Most of the time, all these pieces should fit pretty easy. They're a little loose on tolerance. Some of them are a little tighter. Again, just a little bit of wiggling. Maybe, if ever needed, a little bit of light sandpaper or razor blading, but it should all work without any of that. Just glue is gonna be what you need. This piece comes right into the top. You'll notice that pattern right there matches those holes right there. Now you're gonna take the whole thing, try to hold it together. You're gonna be setting it down right in those tabs. They might fall out of your hands a little bit, so you're gonna have to wiggle it in. And again, you might find you put this together a little bit different than I do, just depending on how your hands work and how you hold things together. Set it in place, and then you kind of wiggle it around. That back piece just slid in as I kind of wiggled it a little bit. These front pieces might take a little bit of wiggling as you take that little front and wiggle it in, move it around, wiggle it in over here. Everything's getting closer and closer, wiggled. And there we go. Put glue around those edges. I put some glue in there, and then you can set it in place, hold it all in, and that's your basic sword booth right there, all the main pieces of the basic thing. Now comes these sides and these rafters for the wattle and daub sort of look right here. For these side pieces, it's good to put glue in some larger areas in the corners, and then take your finger and dab that glue around, spread it out, get it a little bit tacky, let it dry a little bit. You don't want big globs of glue that squish out. And again, if that squishes out in any way, you can always take a toothpick or X-Acto blade and kind of clean out those edges a little bit if you want. Wood glue dries pretty clear, so you never have to worry about it really. Okay, here's on these ones. We're gonna do the sides first, because the sides is gonna let you line this up in the back. These sides go right up into this roof. You'll know which sides are the outside from those shutter etchings right there. It should lock right in and then not wiggle anywhere. One side, the other side. Again, the shutter is to the outside. And then that gives a little bit of overlap here. This piece now can fit right in here under the roof and snap right in to those two edges of there. Everything's locking into place. Everything's glued and locked down there. For the front, and that is the back side, a little honeycomb burn mark. This side, a nice even burn mark along the edge. This you'll have to glue, set into place, and you'll be holding some of these pieces for a few seconds as the glue dries and hardens. I'm gonna let this drop right now because some of these pieces are just coming off because they're not glued. This top piece here, glue along the bottom, a little thicker on this one because there's not a lot to hold on to here. You're gonna set that on, give it a little bit of pressure, nice and even. Same thing with this top piece, a little glue along the side. Set it on, give it a little bit of pressure. Hold it a little longer than you might hold some other pieces because it doesn't have the tab and slot. It's just straight glue on straight sides. Nice and even. And then the last piece you're gonna do is a little bit of glue right here on these. Oh, there we go. You could do that. You decide, let your adventurers decide. Right there, a little bit of glue, you can draw the name of your booth right on there, and then this piece will go, it'll be up here, and this piece will go right there in the front of the shop. That's it. It looks a little crazy right now because it's not glued together, but you get the idea of the sword booth.